I'm Barb Hefner, a member of your parish committee. We're glad that you're here with us today, whether you are online at home or here in our very festive sanctuary. A warm welcome as well to any visitors we have today. We hope you'll join us for coffee and cookies downstairs after the service. Our mission is to build community, to search for meaning, to deepen our spirituality, and to make a better world. To learn more about First Parish or Unitarian Universalism, please contact Kate Holland, who's our Director of Lifespan Education and Engagement, and Kate will be speaking shortly. There she is waving. You can also reach out to a member of the parish committee or to Reverend Stephanie if you have ideas or questions about First Parish. A big thanks to all of our service participants. Their names are in the order of service. I would ask you to note that Middlesex County is now in a medium level of risk for COVID. Plus, as we know, the flu is everywhere, so kindly mask today. Those of us who are unmasked have tested negative this morning. Please take a moment to say hello to one another by waving at the camera or waving at your fellow attendees. Welcome again, and let the service begin.
Today, we celebrate the kindling of light in multiple ways. We welcome Yule, the winter solstice, as the days begin to lengthen. We say Merry Christmas as Christmas Eve and the light of hope born in a baby draws near. And we say Happy Hanukkah as the festival of lights begins this evening at sunset, bringing families together. Here at First Parish, we are also kindling the light of visions of what could be in the coming months and years. Amidst the dark and cold of winter days, we hold fast to the promise of new life and a renewed sense of the light we might bring to our shared world. I now invite the Cullen family to come forward to light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and all 4 candles of the Advent wreath, candles that symbolize the gifts of hope, joy, love. Ready, the holiday begins at sunset, so we leave it unlit for now.
Good morning. Please join me as we say together, with open minds and loving hearts, we gather to search for meaning, to care for one another, and work together for a better world.
Despite my voice, I did test this morning, so I'm unmasked just so that you can help us through this glorious song. We are going to sing the 12 Days of Christmas, which in my household we call Christmas calisthenics. Every Christmas Eve growing up, we would sing this. Oh, yeah. Okay, is this better? Okay, great. So this is the 12 Days of Christmas. I'm just going to move in the aisle. All right, we've got some great folks up here. So as I said, we sang this every Christmas Eve in my household, and we call it Christmas calisthenics. Hope you're ready to move a little bit this morning, as we have the folks up here are going to show you what to do. So if you're willing and able, we would love for you to all stand up. And could we have our 12 all scrunched together a little bit, maybe four in a row? The camera wants you closer. Okay, so we would like to see the pictures held up to the audience when it's your turn. So let's everybody take a practice and hold up your picture. You'll have a chance to see what's coming. Okay. All right, so do we have accompaniment? We do. Okay, so whenever you're ready, Polly, we'll see if we can take this away. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me two turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me three The 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. 12 drummers drumming, 11 pipers piping, 10 lords of leaping, 9 ladies dancing, 8 maids of milking, 7 sons of skimming, 6 geese a laying, 5 golden rings, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.
So, good morning. My name is Kate Holland, and I am the Director of Lifespan Education and Engagement here at First Parish, and my pronouns are she, her. So, it's a great lead-in to have the 12 days of Christmas to my story, because the roots of the 12 days of Christmas come from the pagan tradition. People a long time ago believed that on the darkest night, the sun stopped for 12 days. And so by lighting fires and doing rituals, it would help to bring the sun to a place where it would move again. So this morning, my story is based on that tradition of solstice. So once, long ago, in the north, there were wise trees. The trees were tall and strong, and they had beautiful green leaves that would stay that way for the entire year. Each morning, life itself, a beautiful golden ball of light, would rise over the trees. Life itself would shine down light and warmth to the trees. The trees would shine down to the people below and give them wood and fruit for them to survive. And the people would shine upon each other and share what they had. One day, life itself said, "I must go to the south. I've been called. But have no worry. I'm bringing in my friend Night to take care of you while I'm gone. And always remember, life itself returns. Life itself is always there." So life itself started to move towards the south. And living with the humans was another being, and it was called fear. Normally, fear had kind of a quiet voice. It would tell you, don't sit so close to the fire. You might get burned. Don't let your child go too far. They might get lost. But in this moment, as it got darker, fear saw an opportunity. So fear brought its voice up a little bit and told the people, it's getting darker and colder. You should take firewood to make sure that you are warm during this time before your friends have it and they're all toasty warm and you have none. So the people listened to fear and they started gathering wood. And when there was no more wood, they even cut down some of the wise trees. The tree said, "Please, no, we will cover you and care for you." And the dark came in and said, "Please remember, life itself always returns." And so all of a sudden, without the light every morning, the tree's leaves turned a beautiful gold and red and orange, and they started falling down like raindrops. The people were amazed and struck by how beautiful it was, and it calmed the fear in them. So as time went on, the sun, life itself, got further away, and the dark became longer. So fear found another moment and said, "With it being so dark, you'll need more food. You should gather more food so you and your family have food, so your neighbors don't get all the food." Well, the people were frightened, and so they started gathering food, more than they needed, maybe even more than they wanted. The dark came in and said, "Please remember, life itself returns." And the trees said, please, we will give you what we can. But the people carried on, and so it made the trees so sad that they began to cry. And in the cold, their tears became icicles coming down from their branches. So in the wind, life itself could hear the tinkling of the icicles and knew that the trees were crying. She turned and started to move north and came back to see the people and the trees. And she said, always remember, life itself returns. And so fear was given a tinier voice again, which is what fear should be. So thank you for sharing my solstice story today. I'm going to ask my friends that are part of the Sikh classroom, we can go down this way today because there's no choir in front, though we missed Music Sunday, it was lovely. And I'm gonna ask everybody to please sing us out today.
Let us gather in the spirit of meditation as I share these words by Reverend Lynn Cox. We pause as the path of the sun reverses, seemingly holding its place for a moment of turning. Let us delve into the gifts of darkness at the winter solstice. We follow curiosity and contemplation down into the cold earth, taking a journey to the world below the surface. Here we find acorns cached by squirrels and chipmunks, perhaps to be food laid in store, or perhaps to become trees in the fullness of time. We find the burrows of hibernating animals, those who sleep and repair. We find seeds, including some that will not sprout unless they first wait through frost and ice. Life finds rest and renewal in the darkness. May those who are weary find comfort. May those who are struggling find meaning and companionship. May those who are injured or ill find recovery. May those who hunger find abundance. Let this be a time of healing, and may the dreams of the dark lead us to share these gifts with one another. Our imagination rises back to the surface, to life where the cold ground meets the crisp air. Here we observe life finding its way. We observe animals eating seeds left on the ground, though the harvest is long past. We notice the migration of birds, natural movement that allows populations to find places where they can thrive. We observe the trees that appear to sleep and yet hold sap that will rise again before the spring arrives. We observe that not everything lives through the winter, and yet all that has lived returns to the earth and is transformed. Let this be a time of resilience. May the changing seasons bring new meaning and new insights. May creativity and persistence lead us to find resources for all to share. May those who migrate find safety, and may there be good news in the wind. May transformation lead us onward. We now lift our imagination to the sky, to the returning sun, and to the brilliant winter night. Shifting hours of light and darkness remind us that change is a part of the rhythm of the universe, and so trouble does not last. Acknowledging the gifts of darkness, we also look forward to the growing light, a change that brings glimmers of hope. We marvel at the beauty of this time, stars unobstructed by leaves, jewels of the night shining over the land, moon and meteors inspiring us to awe and wonder. Let this be a time of celebration. What joy can be found, let us hold it close. Blow on its embers and share its spark. We do not take for granted having come this far, and we give thanks for our companions on the journey. We continue our meditation in silence.
I am Kathy Schmidt, a lay minister of this congregation. This is the time in our service we set aside to share our joys and sorrows. In both our sharing and in the support given by our witness, we affirm our covenant to care for one another. To begin, I will light a candle of sorrow, for the ongoing gun violence in our nation as we mark 10 years since the horrific tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School. I will also light a candle of joy for the news of the successful ignition of fusion energy, where the energy output exceeded the input. We hope for more and more possibilities of clean energy. If you wish to share a joy or sorrow, please add your joy or sorrow to the chat now, or to share in person, please come up front. As a reminder, you may also submit your joys and sorrows in writing using the slips at the front door. As a note, we are not live streaming this service, and joys and sorrows will not be posted to the service recording on YouTube. All right. And now I light the final candle as a symbol of all the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts and minds.
While Alyssa was unable to be with us, you can tell we're all struggling with a little bit of colds among the staff, and unfortunately Alyssa had a fever and wasn't able to be here today. However, she shared her words with me to share with you. One second. I'll read in her voice, so I is Alyssa. When I was growing up, one of my favorite moments of the year was attending midnight mass. I loved the music, the poinsettias, the incense, and the twinkling lights in the cold, dark night. But most of all, I loved ending the service with joy to the world, with everyone singing in excitement about the return of God to earth in the form of this small, precious child. In the Gospel of John 1:2-8, it is written, "He was in the beginning with God. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world." As a young person, I was inspired by this notion of a light in the darkness who was our salvation, wrapped in the form of a helpless baby whose parents had nothing, and yet still he became a beacon of hope for generations of people. While I don't ascribe to many of the same views as in my youth, I still find inspiration in the story of Jesus and recognize that for many people, he is a foundation upon which they rest their understanding of love, empathy, and justice. I am also inspired by those who look to Jesus' message of love and acceptance and find a deeper truth there, who place him within the context of the marginalized community he was born into, and who speak to his advocacy for not only their salvation, but also their survival. In his book, Jesus and the Disinherited, the Reverend Howard Thurman wants us to note the significance of Jesus, born as a poor Jew, during Roman hegemony. He reminds us to keep in mind the economic and social predicament of Jesus' family and the cultural context of the age in which he lived. An understanding of Jesus might have been, an understanding of who Jesus might have been talking to and the realities of the time in which he lived is key to understanding his message. But often it gets lost when we pluck individual passages out of the Christian Bible, or when we do not take a closer look into the historical context of his life. Reverend Thurman writes that central to the religion of Jesus was an ethic of love. And I think that that is what many of us have been taught. But the reality of Jesus' life and his message was a little more complicated than that. He had to apply his love ethic to the oppressors of his community, while also balancing the reality that to love the Roman was also to be considered a traitor to your own people, to Israel, and to God. However, to stand up against the Roman or to hate him in a way that caused action was to invite the wrath of Rome. An ethic of love was important for your survival and your ability to live and work in an oppressive society. But Jesus taught an ethic of love is also vital to ensure your own personal survival, to not let your heart be tainted by hate and anger. Thurman says, quote, Jesus recognized with authentic realism that anyone who permits another to determine the quality of his inner life gives in to the other the keys to his destiny, end quote. Often, when we live with anger or feel that life is unfair or unjust, it can be easy to lean into the darkness within us, to let it overtake us, to let other people's actions define our lives. But for many people, the story of Jesus is the reminder of the light of resilience that is found within us and within our communities. That perhaps the darkness is the beginning of the start of something resurgent in us. That perhaps it is like the baby in the womb whose life starts in darkness, but who has the capacity to bring light to the lives of all those who care for them or even into the wider world. Amen.
To keep the welcoming lights on at First Parish, we humbly ask for your financial gifts at this time to support our buildings, our programs, and most of all, this precious community which gathers in person and online through each season. To give online, please go to uuwayland.org/donate, or if you're here in person, you may also give as the ushers now gratefully receive your gifts. A special thanks to the choir from Reverend Stephanie for so quickly learning the next song, which she hopes we will all enjoy.
Already we have heard some about the winter solstice, the shortest day and the longest night on the solar calendar. And we have heard some about Christmas, whose chosen date of December 25th just happened to coincide with the ancient sun festivals of the solstice, even though Christmas found a new sun or light in Jesus, as Alyssa described. When we turn to the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, we leave the sun behind and turn to the moon, which is to say that unlike the ties of winter solstice and Christmas to the solar calendar, the dates of Hanukkah are determined by the Jewish lunar calendar. Specifically, Hanukkah begins on the 25th day of the Jewish month of Kislev. Jewish renewal rabbi Arthur Waskow explores whether this date may be intentionally linked to the Greek sun festivals of the solar calendar, reflecting on the war that preceded the peace which Hanukkah celebrates. Waskow notes that the Syrian Greeks who desecrated the Jewish temple to offer sacrifices to their gods did so on the 25th of Kislev, perhaps to celebrate their own winter solstice rituals. And when the Maccabean rebels won against the Syrians, they too chose the 25th of Kislev as the day to rededicate the temple. Much of today's celebration of Hanukkah focuses on this rededication of the temple and rekindling of the Ner Tamad, a sacred light over the ark which burned constantly in the temple as a symbol of God's eternal presence. When the Maccabean priests were able to re-enter the temple after their military victory, the story is they discovered only 1 day's worth of oil. However, this oil miraculously lasted a full 8 days until additional sacred oil arrived. As we heard in the choir anthem Bidibam, Hanukkah is embraced as a joyful time, a festival of lights. On one level, this celebration is simply about the miracle of light remaining burning in the temple. But like many sacred stories, the meaning of the rekindled light has multiple levels. The rekindled light is also about a military victory of a smaller army of the Maccabees over the Syrians. Considering this unequal dynamic reminds me of the Ukrainian army fighting for control of their country against the larger Russian nation, a nation that seems to be intentionally trying to turn off the lights in Ukraine. The ability to keep the light burning can be seen as a sign of victory, of a hard-won peace. And yet scholars today have questioned the simple narrative of the underdog triumphing over the foreign oppressor. Others depict the Maccabean War as a Jewish civil war between those who embraced the international Hellenizing influence of the Greeks and the Greek culture, and those who sought to retain what they perceived to be an uncorrupted Judaism. For the latter, the Hanukkah light also shines for the triumph of Jewish identity that remains faithful to its traditions and cultures. In a 2005 article in Slate magazine, Rabbi James Ponent asks, was the bloody Maccabean civil war and revolt necessary to the survival of Jewish identity? While some of his question has to do with the politics of the time, Ponent is also asking a question about Jewish identity. Ponent notes that the texts describing the events of Maccabean revolt come down to us in Greek texts. Additionally, he points to key words in Judaism with Greek roots: synagogue, diaspora, Sanhedrin, the rabbinic high court, and the very term Judaism. Ponent comments, quote, "The Jews somehow became Greek without ceasing to be Jews, even as light, the holiday's metaphor, somehow becomes matter without ceasing to be energy," end quote. I find this metaphor compelling. In this telling, there are no firm edges between Jew and Greek, between matter and energy, between light and darkness. Rather, there is a relationship. Ponent writes, "Here we find the historical miracle that Hanukkah implicitly celebrates, the capacity to sustain intimate relations with another without totally ceding your own sense of self, the ability to love without permanently merging, to be enchanted by the exquisite beauty of another without losing sight of your own charms. This relational art is ritualized on Hanukkah by the lighting of separate wicks or candles that build daily toward a unison of illumination." End quote. In this telling, Kindling the Lights of Hanukkah calls us to a keener awareness of our identity and relationships. The edges between self and others are not rigid, but like the flickering of a candle, exist in the ongoing dance between matter and energy, light and darkness. Whether or not we celebrate Hanukkah or identify as Jewish, this story and the questions of identity can ask of us all how we understand who we are in relationship to groups, including groups like First Parish and Unitarian Universalism more broadly. What is the light each of us seeks to individually bring to this community? How do we understand what it means to kindle the light of Unitarian Universalist identity and values within and beyond the walls of this community? Sometimes such questions can be matters of life and death, as they were for the Maccabees. Sometimes we rekindle our sense of identity through family rituals, as so many Jewish families do today by lighting the menorah for 8 nights of Hanukkah. Again and again, we are called to these questions of identity, which the symbol of a shining light so often represents. Amen. We'll now sing our, I think it's the one really great Hanukkah hymn in our hymnal, Light One Candle, hymn number 221. Please rise in body or in spirit.
One I'm Lee Anderson, Chair of the Parish Committee here at First Parish. Stephanie asks, what is the light that each of us seeks to individually bring to this community? How do we understand what it means to kindle the light of UU identity and values within and beyond our walls? Kindling the light at First Parish is an apt metaphor for the visioning discussion that has been going on over the past 3 years. In the Parish Committee report published in the Unitarian in early 2020, the first glimmer was hinted at as, quote, "We discussed our future vision of the church. We focused on our future 10 years or tens of years out and discussed what we might want to think about how to help create our future. This was a wide-ranging discussion with no action items or specifics to coalesce around," end quote. Despite the shadow of that COVID cast not long after that report, we have come a long way. For those who have not been following the visioning team's work closely, here is some history. In the fall of 2021, the visioning team, Ted Barnes, Jay Woodruff, Lynn Lipcon, and Annie Stubbs, was charged by the parish committee to seek out the vision for First Parish, a survey taking stock of the congregation's well-being, our level of engagement, and our commitment to the future, went live a year ago this week. 114 of us responded. Last February, 60 parishioners invested time in focus groups, which generated about 80 discrete ideas. Ideas fell into 8 categories: strengthening our sense of community, expanding the ways in which we worship, building intergenerational relationships, augmenting communications, advancing social action, planning facilities to meet programmatic needs, reimagining fundraising, and enhancing our presence in Wayland and beyond. This past summer, 40 parishioners formed exploration groups and met to flesh out those ideas. At last month's parish committee meeting, the visioning team recommended the first 18 projects for the congregation to undertake in the next year as we make our way past COVID and onto a brighter, more committed, and more dynamic vision of ourselves as a liberal spiritual community. These 18 projects include some programs that are already underway and others that are generating excitement before they have even started, such as native plantings for all ages. Have you seen the interest expressed on UU Social about plantings that attract hummingbirds, including beautiful pictures? Or connecting more with the UU Urban Ministry. First Parish is holding watch parties to tune into community conversations with Roxbury artists, educators, and business people to learn ways to support minority businesses. Or opening our facilities to community groups, such as Arts Wayland, who are presenting classical and jazz concerts, and piloting open mic nights at First Parish. Or increasing awareness of our educational programs in the wider community. Today, after the service, you are invited to a visioning fair, which will be held downstairs in the Commons. You can ask questions, find a project that interests you, and if you like, sign up to be on an implementation team. Your team will use the exploration group's report as a jumping off point and create a detailed plan for implementation. We are coming out of the darkness of the pandemic by shining a light on the ideas, values, hopes, and dreams that will strengthen our community in the decades to come. We hope you come along.
Our closing hymn is a favorite carol that has that spirit of like taking who we are and going out and sharing it. But of course, it's rooted in the Christian Christmas tradition, Go Tell It on the Mountain, hymn 239. It is a sacred song from the tradition of African American spirituals. As we sing, may we sing mindful of the depth of suffering and hope for a Savior that the lyrics carry for this world and the next. Please rise in body or in spirit, 239. Just a couple notes before our closing words for the benediction that Alyssa found for us. Please join me. I'm not going to stay here. I'm so excited. I'm going straight to the Visioning Fair. So please join me down there for coffee and to learn more about the opportunities and dreams of this community. And also, if you're online, please just hang out. I believe Alyssa's still there. And if not, just hang out and talk to each other. Stay online, and we can't hear you talk, so you can just talk to each other. Having explored the kindling of light in 3 religions, and here at First Parish, we close now with this charge to bring light to the world. Shine Your Glorious Light with the World by James Morrison. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to heal our world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. Amen.